Kodaka was a depressed loner whose delinquent look made everyone avoid him like child support. However, things changed when he joined an all-girls club, hoping to make friends, but they turned out to be freaky nutcases who wanted to work out with his long pole. It all began on his first day when he took the wrong bus and arrived at school late. Not wanting to be labeled as tardy, Kodaka ran to his classroom while wheezing like a fat pig because he'd skipped cardio one too many times. He immediately introduced himself to his teacher, but because he had a mean mug, the woman got scared and everyone assumed he was assaulting the teacher. Later, when he tried to borrow a textbook from the girl sitting next to him, she got frightened, handed the book to him, and moved her desk away. Before lunch break that day, a rumor spread that the new kid was a delinquent. That rumor began his loner days because everyone started avoiding him like you avoid commitment. A month later, Kodaka walked in on his classmate, Yazora, talking and laughing alone in the classroom. Hoping she was too cute to have some screws loose, he asked if she was a spirit medium and could see ghosts, but Yazora answered that ghosts didn't exist. He pointed out that she'd been laughing with someone a minute ago, and Yazora told him she'd been talking to her imaginary friend, Tomo. On hearing this, he told her to stop swimming in delusion and instead make some real friends, but this only made her attack him, seeing as he was in the running for the Loneliest Loser award. Kodaka accused her of having a terrible character that scared people like insect repellent, and to solve her dilemma, he suggested that she start by joining a club. Hearing this, she told him every word he uttered kept reducing her IQ as it was too late to befriend anyone who was already in a club. She explained that club relationships had been forged at the beginning of the semester, and trying to insert herself into them would be like adding salt to tea. However, an idea suddenly came to her, but before Kodaka could ask what it was, she bid him farewell, promising to see him later. The following day after classes, Yazora surprised everyone by approaching Kodaka and asking him to come with her. As they walked, she informed him that she had created a new club, and when Kodaka asked what kind of club it was, she said it was one meant to create and deepen friendship amongst students. The club was named the Neighbors Club, and she informed him that he was also a member of the club while she filled out his form, after which they went to their newly approved club room. Their first order of business was to get new members, and Yazora showed Kodaka the posters advertising the club, which she handmade herself. Of course, the posters were hideous, and if Picasso were still alive, he'd have a heart attack and die after seeing the abomination she drew. Aside from the artistic blunder, Kodaka pointed out how the posters didn't give a clue on what the club was about, so Yazora explained that she'd written the information as a secret message. According to her, if people failed to see the hidden message, they were obviously not desperate enough in their friendship hunt. After they put up the posters, they returned to the club room, and just as Kodaka told Yazora that no one who saw the poster would want to join their club, a knock sounded at the door. Feeling smug, Yazora opened the door only to shut it immediately. Kodaka asked why she'd done that, and she told him that she didn't want to be friends with the blonde bimbo on the other side of the door. He tried to explain that rejecting a potential club member defeated the purpose of their club, but Yazora wouldn't tolerate any blonde glazing. When the knocking intensified, she opened it again and told the Barbie doll to beat it before locking it again. She finally explained that the girl, whose name is Sina, was the school president's daughter as well as the school's top baddie who had all the boys dying for her attention, so she obviously had friends. They were interrupted when Sina began banging on the window, so Kodaka opened it. But before he could speak to her, Yazora pushed him out of the way. She told her to go away and tried to close the window, but Sina wouldn't let her. While pushing the window open, she blurted out that she wanted to join the club to make friends, halting Yazora's actions. They then invited her inside, and after speaking to her, they learned that despite being surrounded by many adoring fans, Sina didn't have any friends. The girls in their year didn't want someone with main character energy in their groups, and some like Yazora didn't like her because of it. When Kodaka suggested they befriend each other, they began to bicker, so he made himself scarce. The following day, both girls were a bit more civil towards each other, and Yazora announced their club activity. According to her, the best way to make friends was to play video games, and she got the idea from a group of teenagers who sat in the booth next to hers the night before. Pulling out a PSP from her bag, she informed them that the game they would be playing was called Monster Hunter. She then instructed them to bring a PSP to school the following Monday so they could play the game together. Following Yazora's instructions, Kodaka and Sina brought their PSP to school on Monday. After a brief argument between Sina and Yazora, they began playing the game, but instead of working together, the girls turned on each other. They abandoned their objective and began attacking each other, giving lame excuses for why they accidentally shot the other person dead. In the first game, Yazora slayed Sina along with the final boss, but in the second one, they didn't even try hiding the fact that they were aiming for one another. They fought each other until the time was up and they failed their objective in the game, but neither of them cared. They even went as far as tagging the game as boring and a waste of their precious time, much to Kodaka's annoyance because they were acting like a pair of stuck-up brats. When Kodaka tried reminding them of the reason they were playing the game in the first place, they got angry and almost chewed him out. Not wanting to be torn to pieces by two angry girls, Kodaka packed up his belongings and left the clubroom. A few days later, when Kodaka and Yazora got to the clubroom, they found Sina sitting in front of a television set that had been hooked up to a prototype PlayStation. Kodaka stupidly asked why they had brought the set to the clubroom, and Sina sarcastically answered that it was because they needed it to communicate with the dead. Eventually, Sina showed Yazora and Kodaka the game she got for them to play. It was a gal game aimed at guys, and when Kodaka pointed it out, they told him they didn't care. He suggested they get one that was aimed at girls, but Sina looked at him like he'd lost his marbles before asking why she'd want to befriend boys.
You are gay.
She then loaded up the game, and while she played, Kodaka and Yazora watched, giving suggestions from time to time. When she encountered the first girl she was to befriend, she and Yazora picked the option not to do so. Surprised, Kodaka asked why, and they told him it was because the girl was giving off serious farm tool energy. Of course, this didn't make sense to him, but the girls insisted their decision was right and carried on with the game. As the game progressed, the character encountered a nerdy girl, which Sina and Yazora were quick to befriend. Strangely enough, Sina became attached to the character, and when it began to blow her off, she crashed out. Yazora was also affected by this, making Kodaka wonder if they shared the same brain cells. The next day, Sina stopped Kodaka before he went into the school building. She handed him the game and instructed him to spend the weekend playing it so that her progress wouldn't get lost. Unknown to them, while they were discussing, they were being watched by someone who hid when they rushed inside to avoid being late. Days later, when Kodaka and Yazora arrived at the clubroom, Sina didn't acknowledge their presence because she was focused on her laptop. Refusing to be ignored by the half-baked Disney princess, Yazora walked up to her and unplugged her headphones from the system. Immediately, happy sounds filled the room, shocking Yazora, so she tried to pull Sina out of her chair. When Kodaka got closer, he was shocked to see the scene on the screen, but didn't try to avert his gaze. After Yazora eventually let go of Sina, the latter closed her laptop before turning to scold Yazora for interrupting her gooning session. Yazora said that she'd done nothing wrong and told Sina that their clubroom wasn't the right place for her to explore her incognito tabs. Sina argued that she wasn't watching adult movies, explaining that it was a new game she'd picked up, making the situation even worse. Yazora then told her to read out some of the lines from the scene without getting embarrassed since she was sure it was not dirty. When she began reading the lines, she struggled to say most of the words, as they were filthier than the toilet bowl. As she read, her ears turned red and her voice began to quake, but because she wanted to prove Yazora wrong, she kept going. Eventually, the second-hand embarrassment became too much for her to handle, so she ran away screaming like a banshee. Kodaka told Yazora that she went overboard, but the she-devil didn't respond as she pulled out a recorder from her bag. She then revealed that she'd secretly recorded Sina's reading session, and asked if she could use it as her entry for a spicy audiobook contest. In response, Kodaka asked if she was an evil witch, so she told him she was joking and pulled out a book which she began reading aloud. During the next club meeting, Yazora was absent, so Sina took the chance to ask Kodaka to teach her how to swim, and he said yes. That weekend, Sina and Kodaka went to the pool as planned, and after about an hour or so of lessons, they stopped their lessons to have lunch. While they ate, they talked about the swimming facility. Kodaka commented on how swanky it was, and Sina told him that the place was on the edge of bankruptcy. She said she'd heard her father say it to the mayor a few weeks back when he came to visit. At the mention of her father, Kodaka said he ought to visit the man and pay his respects. Immediately, Sina became flustered and told Kodaka not to mistake their outing for a date, as she would rather kiss Squidward than date a pathetic waste of human flesh like him. Kodaka responded by asking her to calm her overly inflated racks down before explaining that her father and his father were friends. Hearing this made Sina feel a bit embarrassed, but instead of admitting that she jumped the gun with her assumption, she called him a dumb idiot for not leading with his explanation first. Shortly after, Kodaka went to the bathroom, and when he came back out, he spotted Sina amid 3 guys who seemed to be bothering her. The guys called her all sorts of degrading names, but Sina didn't let them get away with it. She said they were nothing but a bunch of brainless incels whose only achievement in life was the spunk-filled sock they kept under their beds. The guys told her to shut up and began to mock her when they noticed her legs were shaking like a washing machine in use. Fortunately, Kodaka arrived at that moment, filling the scared girl with relief, and when the guys saw that he was with her, they turned to leave. They hadn't taken more than a few steps when Sina angrily called out to them, saying they ought to grovel and beg her for forgiveness after they disrespected her. Pissed, one of the guys tried to punch her in the face, but Kodaka stepped between them and caught his hand before that happened. When the guy began struggling, Kodaka twisted his arm behind him and turned him so he was facing his friends. He then slicked his hair backwards and hit the 2 idiots with his signature glare, as he told them to leave and never come back. Terrified, the guys left without any arguments, taking their friend with them. As soon as they left, Sina praised Kodaka for acting as her meat shield and told him she would let him lick her feet as a reward. To her surprise, Kodaka scolded her for putting herself in a dangerous situation with those guys. He said she was wrong to provoke them even though she didn't want them hitting on her, and explained that she should have toned it down with the tsundere act. Sina tried defending her actions, but he cut her off, saying that not every guy she encountered was the same as her group of mindless fans at school who did everything she asked them to do. Sina was genuinely surprised by his outburst, but deep down she felt glad that someone cared about her enough to call her out on her bad attitude. After this, they left the pool, but before they parted ways, Sina thanked Kodaka for teaching her to swim and spending the day with her. Kodaka sat in the clubroom reflecting on his childhood friend, who had defended himself against bullies. In a moment of anger, Kodaka punched the boy, but they soon joined forces to confront the bullies and became inseparable. One evening, overlooking the city, his friend encouraged him to seek genuine friendships, promising that it was more valuable than 100 friends. In the present, Kodaka reminisced about this advice, drawing Yozora's attention, but she dismissed it and returned to her book, prompting Kodaka to head home. Later that week, when Kodaka arrived at the clubroom, he found a young girl in a nun's outfit sleeping on the couch. Curious, he approached the girl and tried to wake her up by poking her cheeks, but he suddenly heard the sound of a camera clicking. The owner of the said camera was Yozora, and she told him she was keeping it as proof that he was a dirty degenerate who had a lolicon fetish. Kodaka tried to defend himself and explain what happened, but of course, she didn't give him a chance and threatened to share the photo online so he'd spend the rest of his pathetic life in a prison cell with his role model Diddy. Just then, the young girl woke up, and when she noticed Yozora standing in the room, she didn't react nicely. Kodaka inquired if they knew each other, and Yozora introduced her as Sister Maria, their club advisor, but Maria firmly stated that she was tricked and forced into the role. She explained that one day while she was sleeping in that very room, Yozora came in and slapped her awake, after which she began quoting the scripture about how one was supposed to turn the other cheek when a person slaps them. When she said this, she slapped Maria again and then went on to tell her that the Lord had said after a person strikes you, you should give up your room to them, so she did. The next thing she knew, she was signing the club's founding documents and putting her seal of approval as the club's advisor. However, she discovered later on that she'd been tricked by the spawn of the devil himself. When she began calling Yozora names, Kodaka pointed out that if she hadn't been as gullible as Goku, she wouldn't have been tricked by the Loki ripoff. Maria asked who he and Sina were, and he told her that they were members of the club, prompting Maria to accuse them of being Yozora's minions. Sina immediately disagreed, saying she'd rather be isekai'd by Truck-kun than be labeled a lackey for Yozora. Maria said she didn't care and announced that she was no longer interested in being their club advisor. Yozora calmly told her that she was disappointed in her, and said she'd made a mistake believing someone as young as her could handle the task of being a club advisor. Not realizing she was being baited, Maria declared that she could handle the task, so Yozora made her agree to continue being their advisor. Later, while Sina was playing video games, Kodaka told the girls that he was being stalked. Sina laughed at the absurdity of the situation, but Yozora offered to help him catch the stalker because she was intrigued. With this said, she and Sina decided to walk with him after school, and to their surprise, all eyes were on them, as Kodaka's reputation as a delinquent usually made him an object of scrutiny. This time, it was worse because the students couldn't believe he was walking with the school's Madonna and another equally beautiful baddie. Irritated by their stares and unending whispering, Kodaka lashed out. The next moment, all the other students ran off, leaving him alone with the girls, and they didn't fail to tease him about his ability to clear a room. The next day, Kodaka caught his stalker, Yukimura, and brought him to the club room. Yukimura revealed he was a victim of bullying, surprising Kodaka, who didn't think it was common at their school. Sina asked why Yukimura followed Kodaka, to which he replied he wanted to learn to be a strong man like him.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
Prompting Sina to suggest he find a better role model. Yukimura, however, insisted Kodaka was the best, which Kodaka denied, but Yukimura took it as humility. Before Kodaka could argue further, Yozora asked Yukimura how he was being bullied. Yukimura explained that the other boys in his class shunned him every chance they got. He said they refused to stay in the changing room with him and also refused to hit him with balls whenever they played dodgeball. Being the embodiment of Captain Obvious, Kodaka tried to point out that he wasn't being bullied, but Yozora smacked the back of his head to shut him off. She then feigned sympathy, telling Yukimura that his plight was heartbreaking. Feeling encouraged, Yukimura told her that it was all happening because he looked feminine and said if he was more masculine, they wouldn't bully him. Still feigning sympathy and playing on Yukimura's vulnerability, Yozora told him that if he joined their club, he could learn more about masculinity from Kodaka. Immediately, Yukimura agreed to join the club, causing Kodaka to ask Yozora what she was scheming, and she told him to think of Yukimura as his underling. Yukimura perked up after hearing this and shyly asked Kodaka if he could be the minion to his Gru, so he reluctantly agreed. The following day, as Yukimura walked past the science lab, he heard an explosion. Immediately, he went in and was surprised to find a girl lying on the floor unconscious, so he carried her to the infirmary. Later, while Kodaka was in his classroom, the girl from the lab came into the class and approached him. She introduced herself as Rika and thanked him for carrying her to the infirmary, after which she insisted on repaying his kindness. Kodaka said it was unnecessary, but Rika swore that he was and explained that if he hadn't taken her to the infirmary after she passed out, she might have been assaulted by someone. According to her, it was a usual occurrence in the books she enjoyed reading, and when she began talking animatedly about it, Kodaka dragged her away from the classroom to the staircase. Rika apologized for blurting out inappropriate comments, but still insisted on repaying his kindness by offering to fix his bad hair dye situation. Kodaka told her he didn't need his hair color changed because it was natural and explained that his mother was European. Intrigued, Rika plucked a few strands of his hair, and when he asked why she'd done it, she told him she was interested in his DNA. Just then, the bell rang, signaling the start of class, so she turned to leave. However, she stopped to ask what his name was. Later that day, in the club room, when Kodaka saw Yukimura dressed in a maid's outfit and discovered it was Yozora's doing, he scolded her for messing with him. Yozora defended her actions and told Kodaka that he had no right to judge her when there were rumors that he touched Rika inappropriately. At the mention of Rika, Sina joined the conversation, telling them that Rika was famously known as the genius girl inventor because she'd been building all sorts of gadgets and equipment since she was in elementary school. She was still talking about Rika when Rika suddenly came looking for Kodaka to tell him she wanted to join the club. When Yozora accepted her application, the girl became happy, and as she clung to Kodaka's arm, he felt something poking his arm, so he asked what it was, and she told him it was the dirty comic she was reading. Surprised, the Three Stooges asked to see it, and when she showed it to them, they were disappointed, as the comic was about robots. However, they changed their minds when she started reading out loud, and they discovered that the comic was anything but tame. Yozora wasted no time calling Rika a screwed-up nutcase, but Rika didn't regard her words as an insult. She assured Yozora that she wouldn't lose, and before Yozora could ask what she meant, she clung to Kodaka again and asked if he'd like to plow her field.
What do you mean by that?
This question shocked everyone, and Yozora, the prudish queen, asked Rika if she had any ounce of shame in her body. Rika answered that it was normal for people to be friends with benefits and told Yozora that she was way too innocent. Yozora assured her that she didn't care what she thought of her and declared that she wouldn't allow any sort of immoral relationship in her club. Days later, Kobato awoke to find Kodaka preparing breakfast in the kitchen and asked why he'd made so much food. He told her that he'd also made lunch because he wanted to take someone to school for Maria since he noticed she mostly ate junk food. Kobato didn't like this response and began feeling jealous about sharing her brother, so she walked out of the room. Later, when Kodaka got to school, he dropped by the club room to see Maria and found the nuns snacking on potato chips. When he asked if she had other things to eat, she gladly showed him a cupboard full of chips. Appalled by her unhealthy food choices, Kodaka handed her the bento he prepared. Maria accepted the food but questioned his objectives for giving it to her, so he explained that she reminded him of his little sister, so he wanted to look out for her. Maria was surprised to learn that he had a younger sister, but said it finally made sense why he gave off big brother vibes. When he got up to leave for class, Maria thanked him again for the food and called him Big Brother, which made him stop in his tracks. Later, as the neighbor club gathered in the club room for their daily meeting, Maria rushed in and went to Kodaka. She excitedly told him that she'd enjoyed her meal and said it made the potato chips Yozora gave her taste like ashes. Hearing Maria refer to Kodaka as Big Brother made Rika ask if his lolicon fetish came with a sister kink. Kodaka assured her that he wasn't the one who asked Maria to call him Big Brother, and Maria backed him up, saying she was calling him that because she saw him as one. The next moment, Sina spoke up and said she wished she could go into a video game to experience it firsthand. Her friends were shocked by her admission, and when she noticed Yozora giving her the stink eye, she quickly retracted her statement, claiming she'd only said it to see their reaction. Rika knew she was lying, so she told her that she had a virtual reality game she could play. Excited, Sina agreed to play the game, so Rika brought it over from her lab. She explained that the game was yet to be released on the market, but because she had helped develop it, the company had let her keep it. After Rika explained how the game works, all 6 of them put their headsets on and chose their characters. Everyone's character turned out nice, but poor Kodaka's wizard character was designed to be a 30-year-old shut-in NEET, who acquired his powers because he was still a virgin at that age and Kodaka was unhappy with it. Eventually, the team set out to the enemy castle to defeat the Demon King and encountered the first wave of monsters along the way. These monsters were hideous, but Kodaka recognized them as a type of fish he used to eat when he was younger. He begged the girls and Yukimura not to hurt these creatures, stating that it wasn't their fault they were born uglier than your mama.
Okay.
They sympathized with him for having a good heart, but that didn't stop them from attacking the creatures. When he complained about their cruelty, Rika explained that if they didn't slay the monsters, they wouldn't move forward. A little while later, all the fish monsters were dead, and the group discovered they had all leveled up. Even Kodaka, who did nothing, also leveled up, and the skill he got was called Believing in Tomorrow. It was a skill which could be activated by simply believing, and Kodaka called it useless just like a certain Team 7 member. As the game progressed, the team fought more monsters until they got to the castle where the Demon King resided. When they encountered him, he attacked them, forcing them to jump out of the way, but Rika opened fire on it. Unfortunately, the bullets bounced off it, as it was bulletproof, so Sina charged at it, hoping to do some damage with her hammer. The result of that was her getting smacked across the room and losing health points. To restore those points, Kodaka asked Maria to heal her, but when the garden gnome didn't move, they realized something was off. Rika quietly took off her headset, and when she returned, she informed them that the nun was in Slumberland. Not surprised by this, Yozora offered to use her ability to nullify the Demon King's bulletproof shield so that Sina could attack it. Sina agreed with her plan. However, when the blonde charged at the monster, Yozora didn't lift a finger to do her part, allowing Sina to get eliminated. Kodaka called Yozora out for her pettiness, but she justified her actions, saying Sina was the one dumb enough to go along with her plan. Just then, the Demon King tried to attack, so Yozora shielded the group with her rose shield, after which she ordered Rika and Yukimura to go behind the creature and attack it from there. Rika and Yukimura did as she asked, but before she could use her ability to nullify the monster's shield, Sina began tickling her body, causing her to lose focus on the task. In the end, she got eliminated, and shortly after that, Rika and Yukimura were also eliminated, leaving Kodaka alone to face the Demon Lord. He thought of using his new skill, but before he could, Maria returned, distracting him from his objective, so he got smacked across the room. Worried, Maria ran to him, but instead of using her powers to heal him, she left him and went to face the Demon Lord, who used his fire abilities to roast her to a crisp. With Maria gone, there was no one to heal Kodaka, so he too got eliminated and the game ended. When he took off his headset later, he was surprised to see that Maria was still sleeping, and the person who had come to help him was Kobato. The girls asked if Kobato was who she claimed she was, and Kodaka confirmed it, saying she was his younger sister, but Sina didn't believe it. She said it was impossible for an ugly bridge troll like Kodaka to have such an adorable sister, but he assured her that she was his flesh and blood. He then asked what she was doing there, and she told him that she had come to see what made his precious club more important than she was. Hearing this made Sina say that Kobato had a severe brother complex, which for some reason she found adorable. Ignoring the delusional airhead, Kodaka apologized to Kobato for making her feel neglected and promised to cook her favorite meals on his day off. Kobato was thrilled by this idea. However, the smile on her face vanished when Maria woke up and rushed to Kodaka's side, calling him Big Brother. Her behavior towards Kodaka ticked Kobato off so much that she screamed profanities at the confused nun. Maria asked who she was and why she was being rude to her for no reason at all, so Kodaka answered that Kobato was his little sister. However, Kobato, who was still annoyed at Maria for calling Kodaka Big Brother, slipped into the persona of her favorite character and introduced herself as an ancient vampire. Catching on to what she was doing, Maria played along, telling Kobato that she would vanquish her for daring to come close to the Holy Church. When the girls finally stopped playing pretend, Kobato announced that she wanted to join their club, to which Kodaka responded that she was a few years too early. However, since Yozora liked to piss Kodaka off, she told Kobato she could join the group, stating that there was no harm in letting her join since it was obvious she had no friends. Maria disagreed with Yozora's decision, and that led to an argument between her and Kobato, which everyone chose to ignore. Sometime later, Kodaka had a dream about his past when his father informed them that they would move. Surprised by the news, Kodaka's mood turned sad, so when he went to the playground later, his friend asked what was wrong. Instead of telling him, Kodaka asked his friend to meet him at the playground the next day because he had something important to tell him, and his friend agreed. Unfortunately, his friend never showed up, so Kodaka left without saying goodbye to the only friend he had. When Kodaka awoke in the morning, he noticed Kobato asleep in his bed, so he got up carefully and went to open the curtains. Later that day at school, Yozora sat in the club room with the others, and even though she was reading a book, she talked about their summer vacation. She then asked if any of them had made new friends, reminding them of the true objective of their club. Kodaka said his reputation among the students had gotten worse since joining the club. Sina said her popularity was at stake because rumors were flying around that she was dating the idiot delinquent that is Kodaka. Hearing this made Kodaka feel bad, so he apologized to Sina, but she assured him that he had done nothing wrong, so he didn't need to apologize. Rika then asked what sort of activities they had been doing before she joined the club, and Kodaka told her they had been playing video games the entire time.
Wow! Incredible!
Surprised, Rika pointed out that they had just been slacking off and playing around the entire time, to which they said nothing. Sina, who was busy playing video games again, suddenly asked if any of them had gone to a karaoke bar before. Kodaka and Yozora said they had, but it was Yozora's statement that left everyone shocked, as they had never imagined she'd go to such a place because, to be honest, she was kind of a Debbie Downer most of the time. Yozora found their lack of belief annoying and firmly stated that she had visited all the karaoke places in the city with her imaginary friend, Tomo. She then asked Sina if she'd gone to a karaoke place before, and she admitted that she hadn't. However, she became a bit defensive and said the reason she hadn't gone to a karaoke place before was because it was something beneath her. According to her, it was something lonely losers did to pass the time, and she had zero interest in it. They would have believed her if she hadn't let it slip that she hadn't been invited to a karaoke place by her middle school classmates. After her outburst, Kodaka asked her to take a chill pill and relax, and Ruka admitted that she also hadn't gone to a karaoke place before because she hated crowded places. Despite saying this, the sneaky girl asked Kodaka if he wanted to go to a karaoke place with her, and he agreed. Yozora, who was paying attention to their conversation, said she would love to take Rika to a karaoke place because she knew the girl couldn't be trusted to be alone with Kodaka for even a second.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal.
After hearing this, Yukimura, who also hadn't gone to a karaoke place before, and Kobato, who just wanted to go for karaoke with Kodaka, asked if they could tag along. In the end, it was agreed that since their summer vacation was starting the next day, they would all go for karaoke together. When Sina showed interest in joining them, Yozora asked her to prove her seriousness by begging her to let her join them. Having no choice, Sina swallowed her pride and begged Yozora to let her go with them. Yozora was amused by Sina's Oscar-worthy performance. However, she still refused to let her join them. This pissed Sina off, and she lashed out at Yozora, asking why she believed she could dictate where she went. As soon as the words left her mouth, Yozora congratulated her for finally using that old lump of dog poop she called a brain. Realizing that she'd been tricked into embarrassing herself before everyone, Sina angrily called Yozora a heartless witch and ran out of the club room like the drama queen that she was. As soon as she was out of earshot, Yozora addressed the other, saying it was time for them to decide on their real meeting place. Shocked by the sheer evilness she was exhibiting, Kodaka told her that she made the devil look like a saint, but Yozora asked him not to get his tight whities in a twist before assuring him that she was only joking. That evening, Sina instructed her maid, Stella, to prepare her lunch a little earlier than she usually did the next day, as she had an appointment in the afternoon. Stella asked if the appointment was a hangout with her friends, and Sina replied that they were just clubmates, nothing more. Still not convinced, Stella asked what their outing was about, and Sina answered, saying they were going to a karaoke place. She soon got carried away and began mentioning everyone's names, and when her father heard Kodaka's name, he thought to himself that it sounded familiar. The next day, Kodaka and Kobato met up with Yozora and the others at the station, and they proceeded to the karaoke place. On the way, Kodaka overheard a group of children playing nearby say the old nickname his friend used to call him when they were little. Surprised, he stopped and looked at the children, but his attention was called back to the group by Kobato and Yozora, so he let the issue slide. Eventually, the group arrived at the karaoke place, but when it was time to pay for their session, they were surprised by how expensive it was. Believing they were about to be scammed, Yozora and Sina devised a plan which Kodaka thought was crazy. When it was his turn to pay, he refused to go along with Yozora and Sina's plan to pay for different rooms. Instead, he chose to use the same room as the rest of the group. After paying, Yozora and Sina went to their respective rooms while Kodaka and the rest of the group went to theirs. They spent a few hours singing and channeling their inner pop stars, and when they were done, they left their room to go wait outside. To their surprise, Yozora and Sina were already there, and they told the group that they had been competing against each other the entire time, but ended up arguing as usual. On their way home, they discussed their summer vacation and how they wouldn't get to see each other until school resumed for a new term. However, Yozora asked what type of trees they had been smoking to make them believe that they weren't going to have club activities during the holidays. She told them that as long as the other clubs were meeting, she didn't see why they wouldn't do the same thing. With that said, Yozora reminded the others to meet again the following Monday and asked everybody to think about why they weren't able to make friends for the time being. She was still speaking when Sina cut her off mid-sentence, saying the reason they'd failed was because Yozora was too incompetent. Feeling insulted, Yozora began using her very colorful vocabulary against Sina, so Kodaka and the rest left them alone. When Sina noticed that they were drawing the attention of the people around, she ran off whilst throwing childish insults at Yozora. Afterwards, as the rest headed home, Kodaka thanked Yozora for the fun month they had. At the same time, Kodaka noticed Sina running in their direction, calling Kodaka's name. When she reached him, she said she forgot to invite Kodaka to their house to meet his father, causing Yozora to ask why. Before Kodaka could answer Yozora's question, Sina told him to keep the reason a secret, for there might be complications. Understanding what she meant by that, Kodaka kept quiet, leaving Yozora very puzzled, so Sina told her not to be, as it didn't concern her, after which she said goodbye to Kodaka and left. The following week, Kobato decided to stay at home instead of going to the club activity because it was unbearably hot, so Kodaka went alone. When he arrived at the club room, he felt relieved to be out of the scorching sun, and when he sat down, Yukimura offered him something to eat, but he refused to take it. His refusal made Yukimaru assume he'd done something wrong, and to atone for that, he attempted to commit seppuku. Realizing his mistake, Kodaka tried to clarify the misunderstanding, but Maria approached them and interrupted him to ask if he was going to eat Yukimura's offer. Her question gave Kodaka a brilliant idea, so he told Yukimura that instead of preparing meals for him, he should prepare them for Maria since Yozora had the poor girl on a diet of chips. Yukimura refused, saying it wasn't the way of a warrior, but Kodaka assured him that it was the way of a warrior to serve the siblings of their master. Of course, this was a complete lie, but because Yukimura was even more gullible than people who sub for OnlyFans, he believed it and agreed to always serve Maria meals.
Nice.
Kodaka then instructed him to only feed the nun healthy meals, as her current diet was only fast-tracking her visa to the afterlife. Always wanting to have the last say, Yozora pointed out that it was a waste to feed pets with luxurious food, as it made it harder to train them later. Thankfully, Kodaka ignored her even though it was obvious she was referring to Maria as the pet. The next day, when Kodaka arrived at the club room, he was greeted by Yukimura, so he asked if he'd fed Maria and Yukimura confirmed that he had. However, when he explained that he'd forcibly fed the nun cans of protein, Kodaka became worried. To ensure Maria would remain unharmed and healthy, Kodaka told Yukimura that he was only allowed to serve her the healthy meals she desired. Later that day, as it began to rain, Kodaka awoke from his nap, and when he noticed he was alone, he realized that the others were not going to come to the clubroom after all. The next day, however, when he arrived, everyone was present, so he asked why they were all MIA the day before. Instead of answering the question, Rika asked if he was asking because he'd been lonely without her, and he assured her that she wasn't as special as she believed she was. Yozora answered that she was busy. Sina said she got caught up in the game she was playing and began gushing about how good the game had been. This prompted Kodaka to say she was worse than a crack addict, but she assured him that if he played the game, he would also love it. She said all these while getting all up in his face, so Yozora pulled out her fly swatter to smack some sense into her. Fortunately, before she could succeed, Kodaka spoke up, saying they needed a way to communicate with each other so that what happened the previous day wouldn't repeat itself. The girls agreed he was right, and even praised him for using his thinking box properly for the first time. Sina then asked what he had in mind, and he said a net bulletin, but Yozora rejected the idea, saying she didn't like using the net. Sina also wasn't on board with the idea, so he suggested creating a group on a site called Nixie, even though he wasn't a member. This idea was also rejected because Sina was the only one who had a Nixie account, and Rika explained that the process to join wasn't very straightforward. Since all his ideas were rejected, Rika proposed that they exchange contacts and use emails instead. This was the most logical answer and something they should have thought of before, but somehow it skipped their minds. Kodaka and Yozora praised Rika for helping them realize that their brains were decorative pieces and decided that everyone should exchange emails. The only problem with this was that Kodaka and Yozora were clueless noobs when it came to technology. They were shocked when they realized there were other ways to make use of a cell phone aside from making phone calls.
Stop it. Get some help.
After a few trials and errors, the two dumb idiots successfully exchanged emails and felt proud of themselves, much to Sina's annoyance. When Kodaka approached her to exchange emails, Sina told him she didn't have one because she didn't need it. Seeing this, Yozora decided to mess with Sina by calling Kodaka right there and then. As they discussed, Yozora kept making insulting remarks at Sina, and when the girl couldn't take it anymore, she screamed at Yozora before running out of the room. However, that night, she called Kodaka to find out the make and model of his cell phone, and after he told her, she hung up the phone. On his way to school the next day, Kodaka received a message from Rika, telling him that she was waiting for him in the club room wearing only her birthday suit, causing his cultured mind to conjure a naughty image of Rika. To make things worse, Rika sent another email, informing him that Yozora was also in her birthday suit with an image of what looked like her cleavage. However, Yozora emailed him, saying the image he received was Rika's arm and not her melons as she wanted him to believe. For the rest of the bus ride, Rika kept emailing naughty things to him, and it didn't help that the man sitting in front was flipping through a dirty magazine. When he arrived at school, Rika excitedly welcomed him and began telling him about the new comic genre she just discovered, as Yukimura offered him some tea. Later that evening, Yozora woke up from her nap on the couch and asked Kodaka where everyone was. Just as he told her that they had gone home, Sina came into the room and started being dramatic as usual, but the duo chose to ignore her. She then pulled out a new phone, which was exactly the same as Kodaka's, including the model and color. When Kodaka pointed this out, she feigned ignorance and asked him to exchange phone numbers and email addresses with her. After exchanging addresses with Kodaka, Sina approached Yozora to exchange with hers, but Yozora refused to do so and asked her to prove herself first, causing Sina to burst into tears and leave the clubroom. When Sina was out of earshot, she texted Kodaka to give her Yozora's address so she could spam her. Seeing this, Yozora asked for Sina's contact, telling Kodaka that she only wanted her to have her email address, so he gave it to her. A little while later, Sina returned to the clubroom in tears and complained to Kodaka that her phone was acting up. Yozora wasn't interested in what the whiny princess was going on about, so she told Kodaka she was going home. However, when she heard Sina pleading with Kodaka to do something about her phone, she stopped by the door and observed them for a while before walking away. A few days later, as Kodaka walked home from the grocery store in the terrible heat, he noticed a lot of couples sitting around and making plans to go to the pool. Seeing how they were okay with the heat made him wonder if having a bad case of love on the brain made one resistant to the sun's brutal rays. Later, when he arrived home, he was greeted by disturbing news. The air conditioner had retired. Having no choice, he went to the store to get a new one, but was informed that it would take 3 days before it could be installed. Kobato was so distraught when she heard the news that she retreated into her mind and allowed her vampire persona to take over. Vampire Kobato complained about how incompetent and useless humans were and tried to gaslight herself into believing the heat didn't bother her. As she sat watching her favorite show, Kodaka suggested that she change into something lighter, but she refused, saying her dress embodied her power of darkness. However, when she saw her favorite character transform into her true form, she decided that changing clothes wasn't such a bad idea. After watching the episode, she rushed to her room, and when she got back, she attempted to do the same transformation. Since she didn't have any magic, she had to take off her clothes manually, so Kobaka ignored her until she was finished. The only thing he told her to do was to put all the clothes she took off into the washer when she was done. After obeying his orders, she returned to the living room to complete her so-called transformation. As she stood before her brother spewing nonsense about how she was finally at her strongest, he called her a low-budget vampire. Kobato ignored his insult and kept talking, but Kodaka's attention was drawn to the clock, and when he noticed the time, he asked if she wanted to go to the club meeting with him. Kobato was about to turn him down, but when he mentioned that the air conditioning was working, she changed her mind. As they left the house, Kodaka teased Kobato for still fitting into clothes she wore when she was in elementary school. Not wanting to show that his words affected her, Kobato assured him that the only reason that was possible was because she was a vampire who didn't age. When they got to the clubroom later, Yukimura welcomed them before Maria rushed to hug Kodaka and tell him about the meal Yukimura got her. When he heard he made her sushi, Kodaka told Yukimura that when he asked him to feed her healthy meals, he didn't mean he should go overboard. Before Yukimura could respond, Maria cut him off, saying she was grateful to him for always feeding her. She then told Kodaka that she loved him very much, which was the trigger that set Kobato off, so she pulled Maria away from her brother. Since she was in a jealous fit, she called Maria stupid and told her to stop trying to steal her brother. In response, Maria charged at Kobato and began hitting her with her tiny fists, so Kobato bit her to make her stop. Dumb as she was, Maria began lamenting the fact that she'd turn into a vampire because Kobato bit her, and instead of Yozora telling her the truth, she decided to mess with her. She told Maria that if she sunbathed without her clothes, the vampire toxins would be destroyed and she would remain a human. Immediately, Maria thanked Yozora for the advice and ran out of the room to do as she'd said.
Man, I'm dead.
Seeing how the naive girl fell for Yozora's lies, Kodaka told Yozora that her evil knew no bounds. Just then, Sina began gushing about how cute Kobato was in her new outfit, and it made Kobato uncomfortable. Rika soon joined her, and both of them tried to strip Kobato and turn her into their play doll, so she hid behind Kodaka. Thankfully, Yozora used her fly swatter to set them straight, after which she scolded them for behaving like cultured freaks. Later on, while everyone was settled doing their own things, Kodaka talked about how boring the holidays had been. Yozora added to what he said by saying she wished all those who were enjoying their vacation would die because she was jealous that she wasn't in their shoes. Sina responded saying she was nothing but a bitter old woman, so Yozora told her that she wished a shark would show up in her game and eat everyone. The next moment, a shark did show up, shocking everyone, but Sina refused to believe it was part of the game until her character and everyone else got eaten. Because of this, she got angry and broke the game in half, after which she said she wanted to go to a pool. Yozora teased her for this, saying she was nuts for wanting to go swimming after witnessing such a thing. However, after considering the suggestion for a while and listening to everyone's opinions, she announced that they would all go to the pool as part of their club activity. When they arrived at the pool the next day, they were shocked to find it overcrowded, as the facility was giving a 50% discount on all entry fees. Yozora, who was a bit nauseated because of how hot and crowded the bus had been on the way over, wasn't very pleased with this development. A little while later, they got into the facility and everyone went to change into their swimsuits. Kodaka was surprised when he saw Yukimura wearing a woman's swimsuit in the changing room, and Yukimura told him that Yozora had advised him to wear it as a challenge to prove his manliness. Afterwards, they met Sina and Kobato outside, and when they couldn't find the others, they decided to jump in the pool. Unfortunately, the pool was overcrowded, and that made it difficult for them to swim or even move around properly. As they sat looking out into the water, Kodaka reminded Sina of the last time they were there, and she said she had more fun. They then talked about the incident with the three guys and how Kodaka scolded her for provoking them. Feeling a bit shy, Sina left, saying she was going to meet Yozora and Rika in the girls' changing room to see how they were doing because they were both nauseous from the ride over. However, Sina returned shortly after and showed Kodaka an email from Yozora, informing them that she and Rika were heading home. Surprised, he and Sina hurriedly rushed after them, only to see both Yozora and Rika already on the bus, which was driving away. Kodaka then remarked that Yozora hadn't changed, as it was obvious she was still the same hard-head she'd always been. Since they had nothing else to do, those who were left also decided to head home. The next Monday, Kodaka and Kobato were having breakfast when he received Yozora's email, asking everyone to bring their swimsuits to the club room so they could use them for their next activity. On their way to school later, the siblings ran into Sina, who was excited to see Kobato, but the little girl was terrified of the annoying ball of sunshine. She hid behind her brother when Sina began gushing about her cuteness again, so Kodaka diverted Sina's attention by asking if she came with her swimsuit, and she told him that she did. When the trio arrived at the clubroom, they were greeted by someone in a horse mask and a striped suit. Surprisingly, it was revealed that the horse was Yozora, but the not-so-bright Kobato mistook her as the villain from her favorite show. Ignoring their shock and confusion, Yozora backed Sina into a wall and slapped her across the face using her horse mask. Confused, Sina asked why she's done it, but Yozora ignored her, and as the two argued, Kodaka asked Rika and Yukimura what they were doing, and Rika revealed that they were having a swimsuit day. Kodaka asked why they would do that, and Yozora explained why she'd asked them to bring their swimsuits to the club. She said that it was because she didn't want the swimsuit she bought to go to waste. Sina pointed out that if she hadn't gone home, she could have had the chance to flaunt the swimsuit. Kodaka then asked why she was in the ridiculous suit and horse mask, and Yozora said it was immoral to show skin in public. making them realize that the outfit was her swimsuit. Kodaka told her that if she had dressed like that at the pool, she would have been kicked out. When Sina took over and began roasting Yozora, Rika got on the table and seductively crawled towards Kodaka. She told him that she had on her swimsuit underneath her lab coat and asked if he wanted to see it. Kodaka replied that he didn't, shocking the girl because she had assumed he was one of those guys who would jump at the chance to look at a girl in a swimsuit. Refusing to back down, she led him to believe she was nude underneath the coat and then took it off. Kodaka covered his eyes, but when she assured him that she was wearing a suit, he took a peek. She asked what he thought of the suit, and he said it looked normal. Rika argued that it was anything but normal and explained that it turned translucent in hot water.
Damn good deal.
In her dirty imagination, Kodaka pounced on her after seeing her in all her unclad glory, but in reality, what happened was that Maria bragged and tried to run to Kodaka. However, she bumped into Yozora, who began chasing her because she knew the girl was terrified of her mask. Kobato happily encouraged Yozora to continue messing with Maria, but Kodaka scolded Yozora and told her to stop being a bully. Listening to him, she backed away and took off her mask, revealing her face to Maria. When Maria saw her, she complained about Yozora trying to scare her, but Yozora put the mask on her head to shut her up. Using this as an opportunity, Kobato decided to mess with Maria, but her plan didn't work and Maria ended up being the one who pissed her off by saying she loved Kodaka. Kobato used her stuffed bunny to whack the mask off Maria's head and then continued arguing. Ignoring both girls, Sina suggested that they go to her family's private beach for their next activity instead of the pool, calling it a training camp for the club. Yozora approved this suggestion since they still hadn't made any friends and their schedule was free. She also said they would bring Maria with them to supervise their training camp since she was their club advisor. Another day, while the siblings were having a meal, Sina called and invited them to her family estate, since her father wanted to meet Kodaka, and Kodaka agreed on going. Later, Yozora, who was on her way to school after borrowing a book from the library, received an email from Kodaka and Sina, informing her that they weren't coming to the club that afternoon. Yozora was curious about their reasons, but she decided against asking and went to the clubroom to read her book in peace. Meanwhile, Kodaka and Kobato took a bus to Sina's family estate, and when they arrived, they met Sina's father and their house steward, Stella, by the door. The man welcomed them and then commented on how Kodaka looked like his father and Kobato looked like their mother before inviting them inside to have dinner with him and Sina. When he turned to go inside, Stella reminded Sina's father that it was rude to invite someone into your home without telling them your name. This made Sina's father stop and address the siblings, telling them that his name was Tenma, which surprised Kodaka, as the name meant heavenly stud. When he pointed this out, Stella answered that Tenma's real name was Pegasus, but Tenma told them never to call him that. It turned out that he hated the name because his peers made fun of him when he was still a kid and he was still sensitive about it. Later, while they were having dinner, Tenma continuously badmouthed Kodaka's father, Hayato, for his flaws as a father, causing Kodaka to retort even though he admitted that he was an idiot. Later, Tenma asked Kodaka to stay overnight, as Stella explained to Kodaka that there weren't any buses left to transport them back to the city, so Kodaka accepted Tenma's offer. When Kodaka carried Kobato to their room, Sina claimed that his father had taken a liking to Kodaka. After Sina took Kobato with her for a bath, Tenma offered Kodaka to have a drink with him, which resulted in Tenma becoming very drunk and later falling asleep on Kodaka's bed. When Kodaka went to fetch Stella, he stumbled upon a crying Kobato and an undressed Sina, causing the latter to run out of their mansion. Stella, having seen the whole occurrence, teased Kodaka and allowed Kobato to sleep with her at the servants' quarter. While setting up Tenma in a proper position on the bed, Kodaka thought of his father and Tenma's close friendship and wondered if he would be able to have a similar relationship with a friend one day. The following morning, after thanking them for their hospitality, Tenma entrusted Kodaka with protecting his daughter. Kodaka approved.
I got you, homie.
Whilst teasing Tenma by addressing him as Pegasus-san, much to Tenma's annoyance. During the bus ride home, Sina sent an email to Kodaka, asking him if he recalled what happened the night before. Kodaka reassures her, saying he didn't because he didn't want to upset Sina. He stated he was drunk at that time and wasn't able to remember recent events, much to Sina's relief. Afterwards, Yozora sent an email to Kodaka, informing him about the club meeting the following day, and Kodaka emailed back his acknowledgement. Days later, the club members took a trip to Sina's family's summer home so they could kick off the beach episode. The first half of their journey was by train, and when they arrived at the train station, they discovered they had to walk to the beach house because there were no buses or cabs. The walk was torturous to them because they weren't used to walking for so long under the hot sun, and Yozora didn't fail to complain about the situation, even blaming poor Maria for it. Eventually, they got to their destination and all their tiredness vanished when they saw the ocean. Without wasting time, they all dumped their things and changed into their swimsuits before heading to the beach. As they stood staring at the water, Rika suggested they all strike a pose and pretend they were in one of these teen movies with a beach scene. The idea seemed dumb, but the others agreed to do it. However, after they did, they agreed it was the dumbest thing they had ever done. Nevertheless, they didn't let that spoil their mood and set up their things on the ground. Kodaka helped Kobato apply some sunscreen, and as he did so, Rika gushed about how nice it would be for him to do the same thing for her. Of course, she meant it in the most lewd way possible and even fainted from excitement after imagining something naughty. Sina then asked Yozora to help her apply sunscreen on her back, which was a wrong decision because Yozora used the chance to mess with her. She teased Sina by using her foot to apply the sunscreen on her body, and when Sina realized what she was doing, she got pissed. Trying to get Yozora to stop, Sina forcefully stood up, causing Yozora to lose her balance and fall. However, her victory didn't last as she realized that her sudden movement exposed her melons to everyone. Embarrassed, she ran away from her friends while ruthlessly calling Yozora names and blaming her for what happened to her. After she left, the others got in the water and had a good time, while Rika slept under the shade of the umbrella. A few hours later, after they had had their fun playing in the sun and cooling off in the water, they returned home and Kodaka decided to prepare dinner since he was the only one with culinary knowledge. While looking for an ingredient for the meal he was preparing, Kodaka noticed Sina standing on the balcony, so he approached her. Still embarrassed by the events that occurred in the afternoon, Sina asked Kodaka if he witnessed what happened between her and Yozora. Kodaka told her that he hadn't because he was focused on the task of putting some sunscreen on Kobato's body. His answer seemed to be what she needed because she felt relieved and finally went into the house to change her clothes. The next day, the group returned to the beach for another fun-filled day in the sun, but this time, Yozora and Rika opted to stay at the house and read, while Kodaka went into town to buy some ingredients for their dinner later. A few hours later, as Kodaka cooked, Yozora kept him company and conversed with him about the meal he was preparing. He told her it was one of Kobato's favorite dishes and asked what kind of meals she could make since he was aware she had taken cooking classes. Yozora admitted that she didn't learn much from those classes because she spent most of her time standing at the back of the class like a forgotten piece of furniture. This was because she didn't know how to interact with the other students and they always ignored her presence. Afterwards, they had dinner, and as they ate, they complimented Kodaka for his food. After dinner, they sat in the living room doing different things, and Kodaka pointed out that they never did any of the activities people normally did on trips like that. Yozora and Sina said they were fine, but Rika suggested they tell horror stories or play truth or dare. This was after she got whacked in the head by Yozora because she began voicing out her dirty inner thoughts again. Kodaka was surprised that someone like Rika was into ghost stories, and she told him that everyone loved a good ghost story. In the end, they agreed to tell ghost stories and do a test of courage afterwards.
You know what time it is?
So they turned off the lights and lit a candle which they placed on the table, as they began telling their stories. Unfortunately, none of the stories they told were scary enough to make someone scream or cry. However, when it was Yozora's turn, she was able to frighten the others with her horror story, causing them to cancel the test of courage. When they were in their respective rooms, sleeping, Kodaka wondered if had ever betrayed his childhood friend. Afterwards, as Sina crept into Kodaka's room, she coyly asked Kodaka to come with her to the bathroom and told him to not inform Yozora about it. Later, Kodaka began to escort both Kobato and Maria to the bathroom, as Rika offered to sleep with him, causing Kodaka to throw her out of his room. Realizing that he too needed to go to the bathroom, Kodaka stumbled upon Yozora by the doorway and told him to go with her to the bathroom together instead. Kodaka questions her if she too is frightened to go to the bathroom alone because of the story she told, causing Yozora to retort, implying she can't scare anyone with her story without being scared herself. After doing their business in the bathroom, Kodaka concluded that it was wrong to betray friends, and Yozora agreed with his claim as morning began to arise. Once again, Kodaka dreamt of his childhood friend, but for the life of him, he couldn't remember the boy's name. Later, at the club room, Yozora told the club members about the lantern hanging festival happening by the shrine when she passed by that morning. Nosy as ever, Sina asked Yozora if she intended to attend the festival with the entire club, and Yozora told her no. She said she couldn't stand crowds, and Rika seconded that statement, saying she also disliked crowds. Her reason was that she was overwhelmed by the number of people on the train when she attempted to attend a doujinshi festival in Tokyo. However, although she had turned back, she still got the doujinshi she wanted because she assisted some game developers with their game software, and they gave it to her as a way to thank her. Later, as Sina played her game, she asked Kodaka if there were any takoyaki stands at the festival, and he told her that there were. Her question made Kodaka ask if she liked takoyaki, and she said that she did. Hearing this, Kodaka told her that he also liked takoyaki and said he loved it because it was the only thing he ate which made him feel better while his family lived in Osaka. Fortunately, thanks to his good genes, he didn't add a few extra pounds because of how much he consumed it. He told her that he disliked takoyaki vendors who sold small portions while smiling at you like they had done nothing wrong. In the mood to overshare, he revealed that while living in Osaka, he'd been unhappy because he didn't get along well with others. Refusing to comment on his lack of friends in Osaka, Sina told Kodaka that the only reason she ate takoyaki was because they tasted good. Kobato and Maria also chipped in their opinions and said they also wanted to eat some takoyaki. For some reason, they got into another argument, and while they did that, Yukinura said he was only attending the festival to accompany Kodaka. The next moment, Yozora and Rika told Kodaka that they also wanted some takoyaki, so it was decided that they would all attend the festival together. The following day, the Avengers assembled at a designated spot so that they could all attend the festival. Since Kodaka was one of those oblivious idiots, he only complimented Rika's appearance, which annoyed Yozora, so she announced that they were leaving without Sina, who had yet to arrive. When Sina arrived, she was annoyed that Yozora wanted to leave her behind, but as usual, Yozora ignored her. However, when she noticed Kodaka shamelessly staring at the watermelon ambassador, she got irritated and smacked the fool before telling the others it was time to leave. On the way to the shrine, Sina asked why Kobato wasn't dressed in a yukata, and he explained that she didn't have one. He also said it wasn't mandatory to wear one to a festival, stating that people only did it because it was a common practice. A few moments later, Rika spotted a yukata rental shop, and when she pointed it out to her friends, Kodaka and Kobato decided to go rent one for themselves. Yozora refused to do the same, and no amount of begging or compliments from Sina convinced her to change her mind. After Kodaka and Kobato emerged in their outfits, Sina gushed over how adorable the latter was but criticized Kodaka. She said that his hair color made his appearance look bad and suggested that he dye it black. Kodaka replied that he'd toyed with the idea in the past. However, he didn't go through with it because his hair, as weirdly colored as it was the only link he had to his dead mother, and he didn't want to lose it. Sina was surprised by his response, and she told him that he was different from all the other guys she'd met. Later on, as the club members enjoyed themselves at the festival, eating the foods they bought, Kodaka expressed his dissatisfaction with the takoyaki Yukimura gave to him. He suggested they go looking for one that tasted better, but his friends refused, saying they were already full because of the foods they had eaten before. Yozora and Rika then said it was time for them to head home since everyone had gotten a taste of the takoyaki they all craved. Sina wasn't ready to head him yet, so she challenged Yozora to play a few festival games against her. Not the type to turn down a challenge, especially one from Sina, Yozora agreed, and they started competing. As the girls played their games, Kodaka and the others walked around observing the different stands to pass the time. After participating in a shooting game, Rika won a gaming console and tried to gift it to Kodaka, but he refused to take it, suggesting that it be used as club equipment, much to Rika's dismay. A little while later, the girls called off their competition but didn't fail to argue over who the winner was. Right before the argument got more heated, Kodaka spoke up. telling them to stop acting like children and proposing that they meet up with Yukimura and the rest. Later on, as they waited for their ride outside the shrine, they decided to light up some fireworks and play with them. After they lit the final one, Yozora realized that her hair was on fire, so Kodaka quickly put it out with a bucket of ash-contaminated water, which left her looking disheveled. Annoyed by the situation, Yozora told them she was leaving and walked away without saying another word. For the remaining part of the summer vacation, Yozora didn't show up for club activities or give any signs that she was doing all right. When school finally resumed a few weeks later, Yozora arrived at their classroom while the homeroom teacher was taking attendance. Her late arrival wasn't what surprised everyone, but the short new hairstyle she was spotting. As the students began whispering about it, Yozora attempted to pass beside Kodaka to get to her seat. The moment she got closer, Kodaka was suddenly hit with the memory of his only friend from childhood. Immediately, he stood up from his chair and called Yozora Sora, causing her to burst into tears as she replied to him saying it had been a long time and referring to him as Taka. The realization that Yozora was his childhood friend Sora shocked Kodaka, but Yozora, who always knew who he was, recalled the day he transferred to their school. Kodaka's first impression had been a bad one because of the circumstances surrounding his arrival. However, while everyone had mistaken him for a delinquent because of his appearance and accidental lunging at their teacher, Yozora instantly recognized him as Taka, her childhood friend. The thought that her only friend had finally returned made Yozora smile, but after a month passed and he still hadn't recognized her, she became upset. That was why she chose to complain to Tomi that day in the classroom when Kodaka walked in and found her talking to herself. Their discussion about their inability to fit in and make friends was what gave Yozora the idea to form the club, which was initially meant for only her and Kodaka. The excitement about being in a club with Kodaka led her to seek Maria out after getting a club application form. Taking advantage of the poor girl's inexperience and naive nature, Yozora forced and tricked Maria into becoming the club's advisor and even giving up the chapel's lounge, which Maria usually napped in. The next day, she asked Kodaka to come with her and informed him about the club and their goal to make friends through it. However, Kodaka was unaware that Yozora's true goal was to befriend him again, as she wanted to get to know the grown-up Kodaka. What Yozora didn't expect was that other people would join the club and they would all learn to like each other. Back in the present, Kodaka kept looking at Yozora, who still had happy tears in her eyes until the teacher asked him to put his peaches down. The teacher's voice brought him back to his senses, but his actions left his classmates wondering and questioning what had transpired between him and Yozora. When Kodaka sat down, Yozora turned around and wiped the tears from her eyes before taking her seat. The teacher resumed checking attendance, while Kodaka continued to stare at Yozora. At the end of the class, Kodaka approached Yozora as their classmates began to watch them curiously. He asked her about her hair, and Yozora responded that it was his fault she had to cut it to shoulder length after the firework incident at the festival. Kodaka apologized to her, but as he did, their classmates misinterpreted the nature of their conversation, thinking it was something inappropriate. Yozora grabbed Kodaka's hand and pulled him out of the classroom to the staircase. There, she questioned him about his feelings and thoughts now that he knew she was Sora. Kodaka admitted he was still surprised, as he hadn't had time to process everything yet. However, he complimented her haircut, causing Yozora to blush before she asked if he was just saying that to be nice, but Kodaka assured her that her new hairstyle suited her. As they walked to the club room, Yozora told Kodaka about her visit to the salon, saying it was a nerve-wracking experience. After her story, Kodaka curiously asked Yozora if she'd known he was Taka all along, and she confirmed that she did. She said his hair was a dead giveaway because he was the only person she knew who had such a mismatched hair color. She also admitted that she pretended not to know him because he didn't recognize her when they met, and Kodaka apologized. He explained that he'd always assumed Sora was a boy, so it never occurred to him that she was his childhood friend. Yozora then began teasing him, saying she always knew his head was filled with nothing but sand because she never once told him she was a boy. He was the one who assumed her gender, and she didn't know how to tell him that she was a girl. She told him she'd wanted to tell him at one point, but she felt like facing him because she was in a skirt. The same skirt she'd worn to show him that she was a girl and not a boy like she assumed. Hearing her blame him for mistaking her identity made Kodaka get all defensive, and he asked why she'd worn a skirt just to tell him the truth. Yozora responded by telling her dim-witted friend that if she hadn't worn the skirt, he wouldn't have believed her and would have assumed she was messing with him. When Kodaka didn't argue, she begged him to keep their relationship a secret from the rest of the club, and he agreed. He then asked how he should address her going forward since he now knew who she was, and that made her recall when she'd asked him to call her by her government-approved name. He'd asked if she had a nickname, and she replied that nicknames were something only friends used for themselves, implying that they weren't friends. In the clubroom later, Rika screamed when she saw Yozora with short hair because she mistook her for a hot gigachad. Yukimura assumed that Kodaka had replaced him with a more efficient and masculine guy, but Kodaka told him it wasn't so. After Rika collapsed in her chair, Sina, who was playing her game on a laptop, immediately recognized Yozora and asked why she cut her hair short. Yozora didn't answer Sina's question, claiming that she'd lose precious time and brain cells if she did, much to Sina's annoyance. Rika then left the clubroom, and afterwards, Sina asked Yozora if she confessed and got rejected. Yozora groaned in frustration after hearing Sina's question, as Sina began flinging insults at Yozora thinking she got rejected, causing Yozora to hit Sina with her fly swatter, implying she wasn't rejected, and added that she now is aware of Sina's reaction if ever she was heartbroken. Not ready to back down, Sina again asked Yozora why she cut her hair, but Yozora still refused to answer. Afterwards, Rika returned to the clubroom and asked Yozora to wear the white long coat that she brought that only the student council president of Galford Academy could wear, and added that Yozora would definitely look good if she wore it, and Yozora reluctantly agreed. Later, as Kodaka and Yukimura waited outside the clubroom for Yozora to change, Maria came and hugged Kodaka and asked why he was outside. Just then, Yozora called out to Kodaka to come back inside. When he did, Kodaka became captivated by Yozora's appearance, but Maria, who was still clinging to Kodaka, was shocked and mistook her for a hottie. She then lamented the fact that guys like that liked to devour cute girls like her, so Yozora snuck up on her and frightened her. When Kobato came to the clubroom later, she asked Kodaka to help her complete her summer homework. However, before she got a response, Maria pulled Kobato and dragged her to stand before Yozora, telling the latter to eat her instead, which horrified Kobato. Deciding to join in the fun, Sina raised her hand, implying excitedly that she would eat Kobato, causing Yozora to throw her fly swatter at her. Sina then remarked that with short or long hair, Yozora was still the same person, and Yozora agreed, adding that she was herself, and nothing would change that. As Kodaka observed them, he recalled their conversation from earlier about what he should call her. When Yozora didn't respond and tried to walk away, he called her Sora, causing her to stop and turn to look at him. She then told him to continue calling her Yozora like he'd been doing since they were now different people, and he agreed. Back in the present, Yozora placed the coat on the table and announced that the club activities for the new semester could now commence. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed today's video, let us know by commenting Ruby-chan. Also, if you like anime recaps like this one, check out the next video and our channel to see if your favorite anime has been recapped.